Okay, perfect. So we have some great questions. The first one up is this one, and this is such a great question. So it's, what would be the anti-patterns and pitfalls to avoid as one starts with Microsoft Fabric? And it was asked by Marius Nielsen on LinkedIn. So Marius is a fellow Norwegian, so that's pretty awesome too. And I think this is a really relevant question, and a question everyone starting out with Microsoft Fabric should ask themselves, because but even though it's quite easy to use and so on, I think there are some pitfalls.
So what are the kind of things to watch out for then? Because I know quite a few, but what are the kind of things that you're thinking about when you see this kind of question?
Okay, so I obviously Microsoft Fabric is coming from the Power BI world, right? So to me, I just right away starts thinking about Power BI. So this is just a pretty little slide showing that, well, when you're working with Power BI, because it's so easy, anyone and everyone could just create reports and workspaces and apps and data sets or semantic models. Sorry. And you will just, I mean, you're changing the name all the time.
And that's how we keep you busy. That's how we keep ourselves entertained. By changing the name. We have a department of name changes at Microsoft.
You can't guess where they're going to add a space next. It's between the E and the M. It'll be semantic models. It's going to be awkward.
Yeah, we need to stay focused on working with this. But the point here is that your environment is just going to grow and grow and grow. And now I feel like people are grasping the concept of governance, right? That, oh, cool, we should have thought about Power BI governance before we started. But
by the way, can we go back to the semantic model? That's only when semantic models arrive in the second edition. No?
I mean,
sorry, that's a deep cut.
That's a UK deep cut. They're the great value brand of like 40K and Warhammer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm picking up what you're putting down, but
okay, cool.
A little bit too
anyway,
much.
Sorry.
Anyway,
focus here is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So we have a lot of things happening, right? And then your environment is just going to grow and grow and grow, and because we now have Fabric, so Fabric is just making everything easier, not only the reporting, but you can do so much more without being the super techie person, moving closer towards the data sources, right? So in this data ecosystem where you have your sources, then you have a curation process, and then you have the reports, Fabric is going to move everyone closer to the source. And that's great news, because then everyone can do more. But that means that we will have more people doing things, and then so it's easy to do things, but you need to remember to do things right? So we had this slide with Power BI growing, and now we're going to have the same situation, I think, with Fabric. So Fabric is going to just grow.
But then to the nth degree, right? I mean, Fabric scope is way more than just a semantic model and a report and a dashboard and that kind of stuff, right? We're now adding notebooks, we're adding lake houses and what have you, all that stuff, right? So it's going to be way more complicated even, because we suddenly now not are operating in a 3-dimensional space, but in a 10 or 12 or 20-dimensional space, right? So this problem becomes way bigger right now than just with Power BI.
Exactly. If you don't have control from the start, things are going to explode, and you will not have control over anything in your data ecosystem.
Right.
So
there's another challenge with that too, because with Power BI, at least, you were working out of workspaces. And if you partitioned that in a weird sort of way, it wasn't the end of the world, because usually you're using these reports as kind of self-contained units, right? But with Fabric, there's this kind of mixed messages of it's the one lake to rule them all and shadow bind them, all that kind of stuff. But also we have workspaces and domains, but then we have shortcuts to punch holes through the workspaces and domains. And so there's this tension between trying to cut things up based on the use case, but have one single source of truth, one single source of your data. And so, like, I don't even know a good answer for how to approach that at this point.
Right. And I think we're all kind of figuring this out, right? I think everybody here is just, we're all basically brand new to the Fabric world. So all of us are kind of like figuring this out as we go. So it's not an easy task at all. No.
Agree. It's super challenging. And also, I mean, we already discussed parts of this, but here we see, so this is just an example. In the one lake, you have these workspaces and you can put up lake houses or data warehouses. So how should you structure this? So how should you structure your domains and workspaces? That's one question. But also, if you're working in medallion architecture, where do you put the bronze and silver and gold layers? So for instance, also if you're in a data mesh architecture, do you want to centralize the bronze and silver? So that's one workspace and maybe one lake house, but then you put the gold that's distributed into different workspaces or just different lake houses. Or do you want to have one lake house for everything, or one lake house for bronze and one lake house for silver and one lake house for gold?
And then
so many questions.
There's two meta points here as well. One is, I see a lot of debate about what does each color even mean? Like there's people, like not everybody aligns on what a bronze layer, what a silver layer, and what a gold layer is. Like there's literally debates of people going like, well, the gold is just whatever it was, but then cleaned. Like if it was a CSV based format or a parquet format, it will still be a parquet format. And just clean, not like remodeled, and not like almost like a data warehouse kind of like model right there, right? So we should also just, when we say medallion architecture, I think us as an industry, we need to align on what it actually means. Like, what is a bronze layer? What is a silver layer? What is a gold layer? Because everybody's just doing something right now. And I understand everybody's figuring this out. But it's also, let's recognize it's not like this whole idea of a lake and a medallion architecture is brand new. This is like, in the Hadoop world from before, this is something that we did, right? So it's not like this needs to go out all in the window over and just start again, right? It's just like we need to figure out what this means for us. Like when we talk about these medallion layers, what do we expect? Because then finally we get terms and terminology that people agree with, right? So gold means this, bronze means this, silver means that, right? So I think there's that. Also, the other thing I want to say is don't skip over this. I see many people that just go like the classic Power BI mistake of going like, don't model, just do visualize and then worry about the model later. Same approach happens here, and partly maybe because the origin is Power BI, so people with that bad behavior came to Fabric and keep doing the bad behavior. Don't skip over this. This is your foundation of the house and what you're building, right? Not just don't build your house on quicksand. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's really good point. And also because the access layers are like the workspaces here are important for how you access your content. You need to think, okay, so is what's my way of putting the gold thing, whatever that may be, out there to people. And also if you're in the data mesh world, is the gold layer where you put your data products, are those the finished products? And how do I make them accessible?
Right.
Should they be through some standardized? Should we always use the shortcut, or should we always use SQL endpoint or whatever? Like how do you want to make your assets available? So that's also a big question. Yeah.
And I think Nicholas brings up a good point here. Like, why don't we just call them test, dev, and prod, right? Or dev, test, and prod. I think that kind of makes sense. Also, although it also doesn't really make sense because you will be deving in all three layers essentially, right? I like to think about them as years ago I coined something that I called the L model, which basically like it's a series of L's that go to the top right. So you start in the bottom left and you go to the top right with like L's that get smaller, like capital L letters. And that's basically like these layers. The layer gets more square when you get to the top right, which makes total sense because that's where the scope, the complexity, the cleanliness of the data increases. The scope reduces because you're cleaning data, but the value of thinking about it as else that fit into each other is basically saying, well, there's one layer, but that layer is also exposed to a certain audience in my organization. Because I also see, for example, people that do all the work to create like a gold or even a platinum. I saw platinum as well as like an extra layer above gold layer, and then say that's the only thing that I'm going to present to my users. And there's a problem there, because if you clean out all the data and you give the platinum or gold layer to your data scientists, chances are that with you cleaning the data, you actually got rid of a lot of the interesting patterns that they are looking for. So that's why the L model is important, because you think about these layers as vertical steps towards an end goal, but you also provide access to the bronze, the silver, the gold, whatever layer you might have, to the right people, so they can use, if you're using a data scientist, you can step into the half cleaned version of the data, so you don't lose the patterns that were there that were accidentally deleted by cleaning the data, right? So it's also very important to think about like what stages are there and which intermediate products do I provide to others for others to work with. And your business analyst might require the gold layer, but your data scientist actually might want to do the silver or even the bronze layer.
Exactly. So maybe because we're coming from the Power BI role when we're in Fabric, and then you're sort of skipping everything or you can skip. Some people skip the architecture part or the data modeling part because you can just visualize anything on top of whatever data you have. But maybe that's sort of part of the key points here. So make sure that you think about how do you want to architect this? How do you want to structure your workspaces, domains? How do you want people to access that? And also, what type of modeling do you need? And also, do people at some point need access to your model before you clean it up? Because maybe they're doing some machine learning or some more.
Right. Yeah. And because of that model, as Nicholas is saying, you basically lose detail, you lose grain while you're moving upwards in the stack, which is great, because that's why we're doing this, to make it easier to work with it, to make sure that we're all aligned to like certain key concepts and shared dimensions is all great. But as a result of that, you might be reducing the noise and therefore getting rid of signal that you can actually end up acting on as a data scientist or as an AI developer these days, right? So it's very important to recognize that we should have those layers exposed to the right people. Not everybody should get all the layers, absolutely not. But each layer has its function to the right people.
All right. I think this is a good answer. Are we satisfied with this answer now?
I think so. I think this is the core, right? I mean, this is the foundation for the rest of your house. Yes, Fabric is great. Yes, Fabric is like, it's awesome. But don't skip over laying the foundational work. I mean, you would never build a house on Quicksand. So why would you build your Fabric solutions on top of Quicksand?
Right.
It's easy to do all the things, but still you need to do the things right.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.